I'm not good at the small talk, so I'm just going to try to get right into it. So, for a few years now, I've been pulling away from the church, okay? And this isn't like a deconstruction video or anything. Well, I guess it kind of is, in the sense of I don't trust the churches for the most part, because there's a lot that I've questioned, and when I search and read the Bible for myself, I have a lot of questions that whenever I would ask them, when I would ask the preachers or pastors, whatever you want to say, ask them the questions that I've found, they don't give me an answer. It's like they ignore it, or if it's almost like you can't question. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people can relate with this, with their church experience, and honestly, that's why a lot of people, I don't blame the atheists, that's why a lot of people, they don't want to even be part of it because of the people that are at the church. And I see it that way also. There's a lot of self-righteousness in church, a lot of judgmental people that pretend to be holy and they're not. And it became evident to me really in 2020 when everything shut down, and the fear that were in people in the churches. It was just so backwards to me that especially the church I grew up in, but pulled away. I think when I was like a teenager, we stopped going. I don't know if my dad's job or what. I don't know why. But the main people that I would see, like singing on stage or being real involved in the church, I noticed that they shut down. They were fearful, and it was a surprise to me of how much faith they lacked, but they sang about and talked about and were involved in preaching about to whatever level of degree. And it was evident that the faith that they talked about, they didn't really believe in, because when push came to shove, they were afraid and they shut down out of fear of their own life, I guess, something like that, out of the fear of a sickness, trying to protect themselves from something that they can't see. And I guess in their mind they thought that they were, I don't know if this was best, but it was, it's a loud plane. It was very eye-opening to me to see that. I don't really quite have the right words for just how, I don't want to say betrayed that I felt, but the quickness to abandon the faith is what I'm saying. But I just remember in church and growing up, my dad we would have Bible study after we came home from church, and he would talk to me about, like in the beginning, different stories. And he always said something like, we have free will, which I don't quite believe in. I think we're either driven by evil or we're driven by good. And if there's only two, you can only serve one or the other. It's whatever one spirit is controlling you. Anyways, and whenever we would do the Bible study, he talked about free will one time, and he talked about how Satan fell from heaven. And I always wondered, how was he able to fall? How was he able to rebel? It seemed like him and the other angels had free will, or what we describe, or what the church describes as free will, to where they had a choice if they wanted to obey or disobey God. And it was always taught that we were, I guess, the prized possession, that we're made different, that we have free will and the other ones don't. But the question for me as a child when I asked that was never answered, and I guess never sought after to find the answer. And that began a whole bunch of different questions, yet I believed in Jesus and what he did, or to a certain level. I didn't know what it all meant. And I didn't see the magnitude of what was and why did Jesus need to come and how things are now and what changed. And I never understood either about it. If you're going to church and if you claim that you're born again, how are you still the same person? Like, how from the outside, when everyone else sees you, you have the same anger, you have the same you have the same anger, you have the same impatientness, and you have the same way that you judge people. That I never saw the change. I saw people pretending, but they pretended only around other people, and sometimes they didn't pretend around others. But it just, and everyone knows this, like when people would go out to eat, like on Sundays, anybody that works in like restaurant industry or wherever the church folk go on Sundays, I hear that they're the worst crowd to serve, that they're so rude, and that they didn't tip and all this stuff, but they just kind of thought it was kind of funny and kind of crazy that, they would at least pretend to be nice on Sunday to their server and I guess maybe tip more, I don't know. But so all this, like growing up, and then when 2020 really hit, I became, I guess, on fire for the Lord, right? All these things that are said in churchianity that we don't really understand. And the on fire for the Lord was basically still Satan controlling me. I was just what does they call it? A zealous? I don't know. That I was passionate for browbeating people with the Bible. Even though I knew the things were true, it is wild to see, even though you know the things and know the scriptures, you're not the scriptures. It's hard to explain this. I was still the same evil person, but I knew the Bible. And so, even though I didn't really know God, I knew the scriptures, and I thought I had God, but I was really wrong, but that's okay. I was new at finding this for myself and seeing I had to break away a lot of the things that I was taught. I grew up in like a Baptist church, and that was another thing that I was questioning. What's the difference between the Baptist, the, I don't know, Protestant, the Catholic, all the other stuff? And I began that search with my husband as we were reading, and he grew up Catholic. There's a lot of things that had to be stripped away whenever you get to it. Like whenever we were reading, I remember, I know this is a big thing about Mary, but I just never saw how the Catholics, they put a big emphasis on Mary. I never really saw that exemplified in the scripture about her. There was very little written about her that we read about. A lot more that the Catholic Church infers of her than what's actually written. And I never could understand how, you get from this small step to this big giant step, metaphorically speaking, with her importance and her, in a sense, worship. I mean, people, they say that they don't worship her, but worship is anything that you, give your time to, your trust in. That's what Eve did whenever she listened to Satan. She worshiped him by listening to him. She said, yes, I think what you say is better than what God says. And so I trust you more. And so I'm taking of this fruit. Anyways. So I never understood that. And he, I think, had a hard time pulling away from that because you put your trust into something for so long as growing up as a kid, and that was your family history, and it's kind of like comforting even though you don't understand it. it's still comforting to fall back on some type of, belief process. Even if you try to explain it, you can't hash it out on how you get to here from here, or from here to here. And he had a hard time pulling away from it. It almost feels like a little bit of betrayal. And I get that. I felt that too with a lot of the things that I had to look into for myself, and different things that people say, like worship in spirit and truth, and like, what does that even mean? A lot of people throw these passages around that they have no idea what they're talking about, and they never question to say, hey, is this what I'm talking about? Correct. And so recently, about 2 years ago maybe, I went on this journey because whenever you have... What the heck? Oh, my cat got scared. Whenever you have the fake... Whenever you have religion, it wears off. Kind of like whenever you come down from being drunk or high. That's what it is. It's intoxicating. That's why you feel the spirit sometimes, and you don't feel the spirit, because it's a false spirit. It's an emotion. It's an emotional driven spirit, and that's not it. It's like a drug dealer having to go back and get more drugs. And so I began to really look into what I really believe a couple years ago. And how I noticed this is I noticed that my daughter, my dad has real bad anger. That was another thing that always made me question, why are you so angry? But, anyways, I noticed that I was following in how my dad had taught me growing up, and what he did, and how I parented based off of how he parented, because that's, again, what I knew from him and my mom. And so I began to see myself through my daughter's eyes on her reactions, on how if she would get in trouble over, making too much noise or spilling something or whatever. And I noticed that I would react in the same way that my dad did, and that I could see the feeling that I had as a child in her face and her eyes. And I said, wow, I'm doing the exact same thing as how my dad did to me, the feelings that I got. And I'm like, why? I don't want this, And I began to look at, like, why do I get so easily irritated? Why do I get angry? If I'm supposed to have peace, why do I still have the things like, worry and stress? And I began to, like, look back and remember that, like when bills were needed to be paid, or the house needed to be paid, and it would look like that we were short on money, that it wouldn't get paid. Somehow it always got paid. Some money always came through, something always happened to where we had enough. And that built the faith in me to know that it's going to be okay. And even if, like, the house didn't get paid, whatever, it's still going to be okay. Tomorrow's still going to come. And even if we lose it all today, there's wood out there. There's fire. We can make a fire. There's food. There's plants and all this, that the comforts might be gone, but you're still going to live, and he's still going to take care of you. And so all of that's kind of like an illusion. Anyways, so I was being taught on, basically, I guess, faith, and learning how to trust and to not worry, because worrying is just wasted energy. All I know is that that's whenever I began to be taught, is that when I was open enough to learn, then the deconstruction happened. A lot more things I would question, and I looked into myself. And I feel like I'm alone in this journey. I know that there's other people on YouTube that I listen to and will, like, fellowship with, but I feel like I'm alone in this, because even my husband, we read together, but he he's afraid to question. If like things about the giants, right? When it said there's giants in those days and after. And then it just goes on to something else. And I'm like, but wait a second. How? How are the angels able to look down on the women and see that they're beautiful and lust after them? How were they able to lust? Was that just a human thing? And then why did they marry the women? They didn't just use them. I mean, they did, but because it seems to be that they can't create their own offspring by themselves, that they have to use human women to do that. But how are they able to? There's some rules, some invisible rules and laws and boundaries that it's just. I know that there's way more to the story, and I may never find it all. But this began the quest of where I was searching for every little puzzle piece that I could find to put together to make sense of it all. And when you ask someone like, I mean, even the church, right? You ask them, or even ask yourself, what is sin? Everyone goes around and they say, stop sinning. Well, I remember reading in the New Testament where it said, you're dead with Christ, the old man. And then it's like, you can't sin anymore. Jesus, took care of the past, present, and future sins, right? But then you have this other passage where there's, you stop sinning, and it's like, how can we do that? How can you just stop? And people struggle with that. And it's like, wait a second, what even is the sin? If you really look into what is talked about that might be sin, that seems like the byproduct of sin. Like the lying. You're only lying because you're scared and you're trying to protect some hidden something in yourself. That's why you would lie. Anyways, that's just a byproduct of what's the root that's in your heart. And it's like, how do we change that heart to where you're not going to have that nature anymore? Because people will say they're born again but still have the same nature. The fruit's still the same. Their whole being is still the same. But they go around and deceived in their, agreeing with the thoughts in their mind about what it is, but they never ever hash it out to when, the nitty gritty of like, what does it actually mean? And am I doing that? What scared me when I was reading in the scripture is that you could have a form of godliness, but Jesus can deny you in the end. And I'm like, how can you use God's power? Because it says that, that they casted out demons and did miracles in his name. How were they able to use God's power and still not have God? And that Jesus says, I don't know you. How does that not make anyone else question several different things? And then it's like, whoever does the will of my Father. What does that mean? I remember asking my husband, well, okay, what is the will then? What is the will that to make sure that we're doing that, to make sure that we see that? And it's not on the surface. You have to be taught. You have to be taught by the Holy Spirit, not by man, but by fellowship with one another, and to be ready to learn. And in order to be ready to learn, you have to set aside all of your beliefs that you hold so tight. You have to be open to all your beliefs being challenged. All your beliefs by men, or exactly how you grew up, they have to be challenged. And you have to hash it out for yourself. Someone can tell you the truth, but it's so wild to me that you could tell people the truth and explain it, and you're like, doesn't this make so much sense? And it's like they have dead eyes and they can't see it, and it's such a mystery to me on how they can't see the same words that I'm seeing but lack the understanding. It is so wild to me. And you can't make them get it. Only God can take the blinders off their eyes to see it. You could shout at them and say, the sky is blue, the sky is blue. but they won't see the sky as blue unless God shows them. And it is just, I don't know what goes along with that, their heart too. If that's like they're still, they can't see because of something in themselves that they're still holding on to. I don't know what the magic formula is or whatever. All I know is that some people see and some people don't. And some people are afraid to see. And I believe that's true. I believe that it is very uncomfortable having your beliefs challenged. But ultimately, if someone really cares about the truth, they don't care about that. It may take work and it may take a little bit of discomfort for a while in order to find the truth. But I don't know how everyone doesn't want that. But I don't know. You have to let go of this you that's not really you. It's like Satan lives in the mind. That's why we have to renew our mind daily. And we have to be aware and we have to be silent to know God. Because Satan lives in the mind and he tells you what you are and what you're not. And he condemns you and he makes you feel guilty and he'll build you up and tear you down. He'll make you happy and he'll make you sad. It's like this constant thing of emotions, like on a roller coaster. And if he's driving that, you'll never be able to see the truth. Once you start seeing that, that's when it's taken away from you. And you can start to discover, wow, that wasn't really me. Something else was driving me to say that, to do that, to be like that. Out of a fear of, I don't know what the ego wants to drive you to where it gets humiliated. It'll get, like when someone offends you, right? And you have to quickly say something back in order to like get them back to make that offensiveness feel better. Why get offended? People that are easily offended, what are you protecting? If the truth, if what they said is true, why did the offense come? What are you protecting in order to not have that hashed out? Or even if it's not true, why get offended anyways? Who do you have to prove anything to? The only one you have to prove anything to is God. But you'll never discover the real you and be able to be taught unless you let go of all that. I don't know, that's what I've been doing. And I wish that I can talk to my husband more about this stuff. But I can still see that he's not ready to let go of the anger, or of he gets annoyed when I try to talk to him about this stuff. Like when I see what I've learned, or when I question, oh, how about this? It's like he'll stop me with several different scriptures, and I'm like, I can't finish what I'm trying to say. This is where I get this from, and this is how I got here. Like this was just revealed, and another puzzle piece. And I don't think that he quite has down, I guess, the milk, or like what Paul is saying, of exactly how salvation works, or exactly how you learn through the Spirit, or why, the anger, strife, and all this, and stress is so, it's so beneficial to let it go. But we've known those for so long that it's comfortable feeling nervous and stressed and fearful and angered by other people for doing certain things to you, or you see thinking that they did certain things to cause something else to happen to you, when ultimately you're just along for the ride, and it's how we react in situations that bring us the peace. Like if you're on a lake or the ocean and there's waves, are you going to be on a floaty just sitting there and going with it? Or are you going to try to be, combating the waves and still being pushed around by the waves, but tiring yourself out? Because you're not the ocean, you're the things in the ocean. I'm so bad at the analogies. But it's how you react that brings the peace around you. And not what's around you that brings you peace or not. I know a lot of people, my dad will even, he said before, he has bad road rage. And he always thinks everyone's going slow just to spite him. And he'll blow around them. And there's been several times where we've almost gotten into an accident. And he actually has hit cars before. Like, his truck was all dinged up. But he don't understand that, hey, maybe they're driving their elderly person somewhere, or maybe they just got out of surgery. I've had surgery. I've been cut from, sternum to the bottom of my belly button from a car accident. And I remember going home after the hospital. It was the roughest ride. Every tiny little bump on the road hurts so bad. But he doesn't know that. He's never experienced that. And he never thought, hey, maybe that's why they're driving slow, or what have you. It doesn't matter. Maybe they're carrying a cake in the back and they don't want to mess it up. But he always thinks everything is against him. And he has no understanding and no peace about it. Or that, they could be, that them going slow could be saving him from an accident down the road. I don't know. But he has the road rage so bad to where he thinks that when he gets, well, he's already old, but when he gets even older and retires and moves to the mountains, and he has nowhere to be, that he'll get over that. And I told him, that's not how that works. Because you find things to get upset about. You could be going nowhere, but if you're not first, then you get upset at the person that's driving in front of you, even going the speed limit, or even 5 over. That's not the problem. It's the problems in you. It's not how everyone else behaves and acts that's dependent on your attitude towards it. It starts with you, and it's no one else's problem on how you act besides you. And who is driving you? It's evident when the fruits of the Spirit say, the peace and gentleness and all this, the meekness. And then the fruits of the other spirit, Satan's spirit, is anger, malice, strife, all those things. So it's easy to see and get a descriptor of who's driving, but we never ask ourselves who's driving us. I know that a lot of people, they go to church and they're just hollow. They're so empty. And, they'll tell you things, and then when you ask them, what is that? They don't know, or they'll make something up. I mean, most of the time they make stuff up. They'll hardly ever say, I don't know. It's part of that pride where they think they know, but it don't make sense. And so I know that this one lady, she was telling me recently about, she passed out. I don't know. She got some bad news that her brother wasn't doing well and that they might have to cut off his leg. And that made her not eat and not drink water or anything, and she didn't realize it. And I think she went a day or two without drinking and eating and just stressed out, and she passed out, hit her head, and then I think she had to have some type of bypass too. I don't know what, but she was in the hospital for 2 weeks. And then she told me that when she got out, that's what had dented in for her. And I said, is your brother, does he believe in God? Does he believe in Jesus? Does he believe? And then she said, yeah. And we've had discussion before about God and the things at work. And she's told me about like making, an olive oil, anointed oil, which I don't still know much about. My question is, why did they use olive oil? Why were these elements used? Anyway, and so we've talked a lot about things, and she says that she could see evil in people and stuff like that. But she lacked the foundation of why did you get so so stressed that your body was failing itself. That's right, she was having like kidney failure or something like that. In the moments of calamity, we forget our faith. We forget who's in charge. And I remember her also saying that she was talking to her brother's wife, and she said that they said that all we have to do now is give it to God. It was the last resort. Like, we've done all we can do. What have you done? All you've done is stress and cause things for your body to fail. When the first thing should be trusting God. Either way, it's going to be okay. Either way, if he passes away, it's going to be okay. If he lives without a leg, it's going to be okay. When people hold other people so, I don't know, like they have a hold on people so tight, it's not their place. We're all kind of lent to each other from God. And it's amazing that people forget that he's in control during things like that happen with our family. And it puzzles me, but I understand. I was once that. But I wonder if these people will question themselves and ask themselves, why did I get so worried if I know that God's in control? I even asked her that. But she said, I don't know. And it's funny, it's silly, whatever. That we go about daily life and we say these things and we say we believe in God and we say all the churchianity stuff. But when the rubber meets the road or the nitty-gritty happens, whatever, do we believe what we're saying? And I know that a lot of the atheists out there, they know that we don't believe what we're saying. Because if you ask someone to explain it, they can't. They give you the same, you know when people quote scripture to you, they quote it in like Old English, where you're like, okay, can you explain it in English, please? Can you explain it in normal English? Say it a different way. Tell me what that means. And they don't know. And they never ask themselves, hey, what does this mean? What does this really mean? You know how people say, judge not lest ye be judged? But they don't believe that, because then they judge and then they call it's righteous judgment or it's righteous anger. And they browbeat people with the Bible, and they're just as wicked as the people they're trying to beat up with the Bible. They say these things, and they say it just like that. Judge not lest ye be judged. What? They have no idea what they're saying, but they say it anyway. So, I guess this concludes this video of, I don't know. I didn't know where this was going. I just was trying to get it out there that I don't understand how people can look in the mirror and then walk away and forget what they look like, and think that people are better than others for whatever reasoning that they have, when they're just the same or worse. And a lot of people in church are fake, they're hypocrites, and they're pretending. And they're not doing a good job. And I don't trust the church. I don't trust the churches. I don't trust the people, because people have evil within them, and it goes very unnoticed in the name of niceness. And whenever you put those things over the truth, it's easy for corruption to take place. with children or with, the women's studies or something like that in the church. It's all I know is that I'm on a journey to find the truth, and more I search, I find. And the more I search and find, the more I realize I didn't know anything. And it's really easy then to not judge others whenever you see that you are so blind and the others are blind too, but you don't hate them for it. You just see, and you know that you were once that, or a form of that, and it's almost an innocence to them because of that. So I can't be upset at that I might be on this journey, but other people are not, or not yet on the journey. And that's okay. And it's not my concern if they find the path or not. Because you could show people the path, but if they take it or not is up to them. And we shouldn't feel one way about it or not, because we're all here on lend from God. Like my daughter, like I'm a mother, she's on lend to me from God to raise her right. That's my job. And my husband's job. And my husband, he's on lend to me from God to guide our family. And in the end, my husband's not God and my daughter's not God. That there's a certain level of, it's okay whatever God's plan is for them. Or it's okay whatever, I don't know, whatever story is their story is okay. And I'm not their author. So we all have our own, that it's not, well, I guess it is free will, but it's like once you're shown the truth, to accept it or to deny it. So, and it's not me that's the truth giver. It all comes from God. So, but yeah, I guess I'll wrap this video up. I just wanted to, I don't know. I want to find some people to talk to that questions I have and maybe questions others have, and just talk about it, because it needs to be talked about in this day where it just seems like there's a lack of truth and explanation going around, to where when you ask people that we hold to be higher, which you shouldn't do that, but you would think that they would know the truth, like the pastor of the church, that they have the answers, and when you ask them, they don't. But you see that they have a little piece of paper, they went to seminary, man says that they did good and graduated, but they're empty of the Holy Spirit. And even if they don't know the answer then, to get back with you. But it's like I've lost faith, somewhat in the church, just like I've lost, faith to a certain level of doctors. Doctors are just being taught pharmaceuticals, and they don't really know what's going on, with you when you come in with symptoms. They take a lot of guesses, a lot of, they just don't know what they're doing. It's all about money. Anyways, it's the same with the churches. And I know that there's a lot of people out there that are searching, that are hungry, that are tired of being in the same old death cycle of these small moments where they, get a dopamine hit, but then are still broken later. And they're mad that they're broken, but they don't know what to do to get out of that. People will tell them, just have faith in God, you know? How can you have faith or trust in something that you know nothing about? But we can know about. People say, oh, it's just faith. No, faith is not, it's not a totally blind faith. People get on planes all the time and they have faith that they're going to get to the destination they're going to. That's a faith. And then a lot of the church has made, you know, a mockery of God and a watered down version of God and a angry and hypocritical and browbeating version to where people, they don't want to be a part of it because they see the evil that you bring. And it's just the same as the hell that they're in currently. So I know that all that's going on right now. And that's why I want to have a discussion about it, about the things that I see. I don't know. And just things I observe and things I'm being taught. I don't know. I don't know how to say it. But maybe we can all come together and learn from each other. So, I don't know when I'll make another video or what it'll be about. I guess we'll just see and not plan because God laughs at our plans. We'll just see. Bye.
All hell breaks loose if it's not in His order.